How would prime GSP do against current UFC welterweights? Now, GSP is ranked among most people as the greatest welterweight to ever live. Not only that, he's also one of the best in the entire of MMA. Some people think he's the GOAT. Personally, I think he's number 2 GOAT. I think John Jones is number 1, 2 comes GSP. He's very, very talented. Extremely good striker. Extremely good grappler. He's so talented, and he probably beats most people, but today we're going to be looking at current UFC welterweights and seeing how GSP would fare against them. Starting off with Leon Edwards. Now, I think GSP most likely would beat Leon Edwards. He's going to wrestle him into a decision, and I know people are going to say, if Usman can't do it, then why would GSP not be able to do it? GSP would be able to mix in his striking with his takedowns much better than Usman. Usman just looked off. And Leon poses not much threat on the feet. I think GSP could actually piece him up on the feet. I don't want to say he does because, like I said, Leon Edwards is one of the best strikers in the UFC. But I don't think he poses much threat to GSP on the feet. Like, if Usman can stuff the takedowns, it's not like he's absolutely going to obliterate him on the feet. I'd give Leon Edwards a 30% chance of winning. I can just see GSP taking him down and controlling him. Maybe standing on the feet with him for a little bit and Leon not being able to do anything. I just don't think much would happen. I can see it going quite similar to the first Usman fight that Leon Edwards had, but without as much wrestling, a little bit more striking. But I don't think it's like with Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, it's kind of like, if Leon's on the feet with Usman, he's going to win. If Usman's on the floor with Leon, he's going to win. Whereas I feel like Leon Edwards versus GSP is more like, if it's on the floor, GSP will win. If it's standing, GSP could still win. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to have to pick GSP winning by decision. I don't think he finishes Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards is good enough to not get finished. I mean, he's one of the best welterweights in the world right now. He is champion, but I just don't see Leon Edwards getting finished, but I do see him losing. Then we move on to Colby Covington, and now this one was close. I was questioning. I thought Colby Covington might be the guy to do it, but now that I take into consideration, I just don't think he will. It would be an absolute war. It wouldn't be like a one-sided beatdown. It would be an absolute war. It would be very, very, very hard for GSP to beat Colby Covington just because styles make fights. I'd say GSP is a better grappler in terms of submissions. I think when it comes to pure, taking the back and stuff and just grappling, I think GSP is definitely better than Colby Covington. When it comes to pure wrestling, I'm going to have to give it to Colby Covington. He's one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. One of the best wrestlers in the UFC. I just can't see GSP out wrestling Colby Covington. And when it comes to striking, I'm definitely going to have to give it to GSP. GSP's got way better striking than Colby Covington. One thing I will take into consideration, though, is that GSP will probably slow down towards the end, and that's when Colby Covington will be able to keep the pace up, purely because Colby Covington's cardio is some of the best in the UFC. Colby Covington's known for his cardio, got some of the best cardio in the UFC. But, yeah, it would be an absolute war. I don't think it's going to be... It could go either way, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to have to say... Wait, I just said split decision win for Colby. Split decision loss for Colby. That's what I think it'll be. A split decision loss for Colby. I do think GSP wins this fight. Colby has a chance. He has a chance, but prime GSP, I don't think he'd lose to Colby Covington. Like, this is prime GSP we're talking about here. The best GSP to live. He could even finish Covington on the feet, but I'm going to give Covington his benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say he wins. Now, the next one, I think a lot of people are going to disagree with this, especially with how he's been performing recently. I think most people are going to disagree with this, but styles make fights, and I genuinely think that Kamaru Usman, right now, or at least before the Leon Edwards fight, could beat GSP. Styles make fights. First of all, GSP would struggle on the ground with Usman, in the sense that he's not just going to be able to take him down and dominate him. Usman, in my opinion, would be able to hold his own, and I think it would be an Aldo versus Marab type fight where Usman's just holding him against the cage. When it comes to pure submissions, GSP's better, but again, I don't see him submitting Kamaru Usman. It's not easy to submit Kamaru Usman. Kamaru's only lost 3 times in his career. 2 of them were to Leon Edwards, and the other one was by a submission ages ago. I don't see GSP submitting him. I can just see Usman being the better wrestler and holding him against the cage for 5 rounds. That's what I think he'd do. I think he'd put kind of like Masvidal versus Usman 1 type fight, where Usman just holds him against the cage. I'd say Usman has a high ground and pound threat where he just takes him down and starts smacking him, and I think he's more dangerous on the feet. I do think GSP's technically better on the feet, as in he would be able to land more, and GSP would be a better striker than Usman. But if one person's going to finish the other one on the feet, it's probably going to be Leon Edwards. Matt Serra managed to KO what's his name, GSP. So if Matt Serra can do it, then I don't think Usman would have too much of a hard time doing it. But I don't think it would be I don't think that'd happen. I think what would happen is Usman by unanimous decision holds him against the cage, makes it a dirty fight, makes it a boring fight, and then whenever they're striking, poses a threat to GSP's not gonna, just want to stand with him. I'm gonna go, Kamaru Usman would beat GSP by unanimous decision. This doesn't mean Kamaru Usman's the welterweight GOAT, because GSP has achieved so much more than Usman in the welterweight division. So I'm gonna have to give it. And GSP has never lost to the same guy twice either, like Usman has. So achievement-wise, GSP's better, but if we're putting them in a fight, I can see Usman winning this. I can see him dogging him out and getting the win. Then we move on to another number one contender that no one really likes, Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad would lose, and GSP would probably get a unanimous decision. He could get a late finish. I could definitely see a late finish happening, but I'll respect Belal Muhammad, and I'll say GSP by unanimous decision. You got to remember as well, towards the end of GSP's career, he was on like a decision streak. He wasn't really finishing anyone. Like before the Bisping fight, he was getting so many decisions. And with a guy that's obsessed with decisions like Belal Muhammad, it's got to be a decision win. I'm going to go unanimous decision to GSP. I don't think Belal Muhammad can get GSP to the ground. I think GSP is able to hold his own and keep it on the feet. And I think when it's on the feet, GSP would absolutely work him. I don't think Belal Muhammad stands a chance. He'd get pieced up on the feet. I know he outstruck Gilbert Burns, but Belal Muhammad's striking is nowhere near on the level of GSP's. GSP would outstrike him and work, put work on him on the feet. And Gilbert Burns wouldn't have. Not Gilbert Burns. Belal Muhammad wouldn't have a response. He'd have nothing left. He'd just have to stand there and take it. He'd probably panic takedown and it wouldn't work. Maybe he'd fall into a submission. But yeah, GSP beats him by striking for 5 rounds, batters him for 5 rounds, and he'd get a unanimous decision win. Stylistically, this is a terrible fight for Belal Muhammad, a wrestler who can strike. Anyway, enough about this guy. Then we move on to one of the hottest prospects in the welterweight division right now, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and GSP would win. I think he'd actually finish Shavkat Rakhmonov. He most likely gets clipped on the feet. Shavkat is really good submissions. I believe he's finished every single one of his fights and he's undefeated. His record is probably the best record in the UFC right now, but we're talking about GSP here, not Jeff Neal or someone like that. We're talking about GSP. It took this guy 3 rounds to submit Jeff Neal. I think it was Jeff Neal, right? It took him 3 rounds to submit Jeff Neal. GSP would work this guy on the feet. I've noticed that Shavkat Rakhmonov, he doesn't really move his head. He's got really suspicious striking defense. I think GSP, with the striking level that he has, he'd be able to clip Shavkat and drop him. If he'd not drop him, he'd be able to take him down, and I think he'd finish it on the floor. He'd drop him and get a quick TKO in the first, second or third round. Shavkat needs to improve his head movement, man. GSP would probably get like an overhand right, probably do that, supercharged punch where he just runs towards you and starts swinging. I can see him catching Shavkat. I don't see any threat from Shavkat, like what, a submission offense, as if GSP's never faced that before. GSP's more experienced as well. Yeah, GSP would win this by, I can see him finishing Shavkat by striking him and then dropping him and then beating him on the floor. And I don't think that, like I said, I don't think there's any submission threat with Shavkat. There is a submission threat, but because GSP's that good, I can see submission defense being enough to beat Shavkat, and yeah, I can see Shavkat getting finished. Then we move on to a fan favourite in the welterweight division, Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns wouldn't win. He'd probably, I don't know, maybe he'd get finished, maybe he'd last, but he'd just get jabbed to death. Gilbert Burns got outstruck by Belal Muhammad for 5 rounds. He got outstruck by Belal Muhammad for 5 rounds. He'd 100% get outstruck by GSP. And I know styles make fights, but there's no way that Gilbert Burns would even come close to beating GSP on the feet. He would not be able to beat GSP on the feet. He'd just get jabbed to death. GSP would just jab him, do that Superman punch, make Gilbert Burns work on the feet. He'd absolutely make him work. Gilbert couldn't take it to the floor either. He could, but I think GSP, he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. Maybe not the best wrestlers in the world, but he's a really, really good, solid grappler, solid wrestler. I can see him just keeping it on the feet and just bullying him, kind of like what Gilbert Burns did to keep saying mixing the names up, kind of like what Bilal Muhammad did to Gilbert Burns, but it's GSP, keeping it on the feet and beating him on the feet. That is what I think GSP would do. Maybe he'd finish Gilbert Burns. I don't think he'd finish Gilbert Burns unless he was to like clip him, but he'd definitely keep him on the feet and be able to outstrike him. And if it was to go to the floor, I trust GSP enough that he wouldn't get submitted or anything, or he wouldn't just get kept down like he would against Kamaru Usman. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns' loss, and he wouldn't be able to take it to the floor. And then finally we're finishing on someone that I just had to include. He wouldn't win, but Stephen Thompson, fantastic striker, but he'd just get taken down and submitted. It would be competitive on the feet because, like I said, Stephen Thompson is one of the best strikers in UFC. Such a good striker. A better striker than GSP in my opinion, and it would be such a good fight on the feet. But when it comes to pure grappling, I mean, this guy got out-grappled by Burns. He got out-grappled by Bilal Muhammad. He'd get taken down and controlled immediately and would probably get submitted in the first round. I don't see how he wouldn't. Like I said, Stephen Thompson, fantastic grappler, striker, but this isn't kickboxing, this is MMA. GSP would take him down and submit him. That's just that would happen. But yeah, if you agree, please let me know. If you disagree, please let me know with any of these takes. Maybe Usman winning was a bad take, or maybe Colby losing was a bad take, but yeah, just please let me know.